choosing the hard now creates the easy life later. And so to be able for us and for you to step into something that's challenging so you can break past that glass ceiling that you've set for yourself as a 7 or an 8, so you can truly live at a 9 or a 10 in all areas of your life, which is absolutely possible, like, that's worth it. Hello and welcome to Married and Magnetic, the place for entrepreneurial couples who want to stay happily married.
In each episode, we have real conversations with ordinary couples doing extraordinary things, sharing achievements, everyday joys, challenges, and the mindset and tools that make love the greatest strategic edge.
We are James
and Angela Mitchell,
a real-life married couple. She's a counselor,
and he's a coach,
parents to 3 kids,
and co-founders of Love Intentionally. We've ridden the highs
and lows
of building businesses while working hard to stay happily married. We've lived it, done the work,
got the t-shirt,
and are here to help you do the same.
This is Married and Magnetic, where love, business, and growth collide. Let's dive in, y'all. Hello and welcome to another episode of Married and Magnetic. We are your host, James
and Angela
Mitchell. We are Love Intentionally, and this podcast is dedicated to all of those entrepreneurial couples out there that want to learn what works and doesn't work in terms of creating the life and love of their dreams so they can be magnetic. Now, this is episode 4, part 4, I should say, of our 4-part series talking about our year in Peru. Angela and I had the privilege and took all of the energy and time and resources to make it happen, to move our family abroad for a year. And so if you're just tuning in to this one now, go ahead and listen, or better yet, go back to episode part 1 and check out the whole story. There's a lot in this that you can learn from. We're sharing some of the fun stories. We're also sharing a lot of the learnings, and that's what this part 4 is about, is the learnings that we walked away with after a whole year. And so it was important for us to walk away with some things other than our tattoos.
Some great souvenirs.
Some great souvenirs, but the learnings and the lessons in life, and especially for our kids, that were super important to us. So welcome to part 4.
All right. So we left off with us coming home. So it was a little odd. Surreal maybe is a good word for it, where we had this whole experience, created a whole life in Peru. The kids had a school they loved. We had community. We had our favorite,
fruit lady,
or, favorite waiters and waitresses at restaurants and cafes we went to. We just were very integrated into our community there and had this whole experience, created this whole life. And then we come back to the same house. We rented it while we were gone. It was not much changed while we left. Thankfully, we were thankful not much had changed in our house while we left.
That's great. That was one of the best surprises.
It looked great. And so we wake up back in Fort Collins, basically back in our old life, but with us as different people. And the interesting thing about leaving for that year and coming back is there seemingly weren't a lot of changes that happened here while we were gone. There were a couple new restaurants in town, those kind of things, but not a whole lot had changed here, but we had changed. And so it was a very surreal experience to go, wow, did that just happen? Did we really just set up this whole life in another part of the planet and then just leave and plop ourselves back down in our old life? And the answer is yes. Yes, that is what we did. But yeah, I think it was a little disorienting at first. And I would also say, coming back, we were sad to leave. We were having a great experience there. We were loving our time, our friends, not knowing when we left, when and if we would be back. We knew we'd go back to visit Peru at some point, but just unsure of what the future was going to hold. And so we were sad to leave. And no one, there was a lot going on in the U.S. At that time, still is. And people, when we talked to them back home, weren't really selling it.
We were why are you?
Coming back, it's kind of crazy up here.
We put a lot of energy into thinking about what would it be like instead of to have that experience of being an expat to actually being an expat and walking away from this life up here and just making that our new life, our new lifestyle. And that was a huge bit of our conversation. Like, could we do this? Would we do this? What would we be gaining? What would we be giving up? And ultimately, this is home, U.S. is home, our family's here, and we think the opportunities for our kids are better in the United States for setting them up for success. And that's where we sit right now. although that can change.
Yeah, and I think it would have been different. A big part of it for me was, yeah, just some of the educational experiences. And again, their school was amazing. And I think if they were in elementary school, it would have been easier to stay longer. If they were going to continue to be in elementary school, I should say, because they were in elementary school while we were there. And that would have been different if we were in a big city, but we didn't want to live in a big city. So to live in our sweet little rural area, it is more rural. You just don't have all the opportunities that you do in a bigger place. So things like, our middle child loves theater. So
One of the
that was going to be
biggest
harder there.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I would say is like Brooklyn is made for musical theater, and I really want her to have that experience, at least in high school. And we thought about elongating our trip at least until that time, although our oldest being in college was a big draw for us to get back and be closer, one flight away instead of three. And sure enough, I never told that to Brooklyn. We didn't really talk about that with her. We get back, and she tried out for her play as a seventh grader and got a lead role in it. And I was like, yep, there it is. Like, there's our girl in music theater. So coming back to Fort Collins, like Angela said, it was not a whole lot had changed. And honestly, I've always loved that about Fort Collins. And every time I have exited I-20 and started driving down the road into Fort Collins, looking at Horsetooth Rock, if you know the area, it's our prominent feature. I had always felt a sense of home, a sense of place, a sense of relax, like, oh, I'm back. And I love that it wouldn't change that much. And a huge thing for me in coming back was I am happy ish to go back. I just won't go backwards. That was a big phrase that came out of my mouth a lot in choosing this as our next step.
Yeah. And interestingly, when we got back, as I was doing things, I was then like, oh, I actually did miss this. I forgot about this thing that I really like to do here in Fort Collins that I missed. And so, I'm going to take it as like a good quality in me. I do feel like I have the ability to be present and generally happy where I'm at. And so being in Peru, I was very focused on being there and I was happy there. And then when we got back, and I remember distinctly my book club got together. We went out to dinner shortly after I got back so they could see me and catch up and all the things. And it was a summer night and I rode my bike to Old Town without any stray dogs chasing me or potholes in the road. So I felt very safe just riding my bike to Old Town, meeting them for dinner, riding home. And I was like, I did miss this. I missed riding my bike to Old Town. I missed meeting friends out for dinner, which just weren't things that were as feasible there.
Yeah, I've always liked that quality of yours to enjoy the space that you're at and not even to say just to make the most of it, but to find the joy in it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was one of the things I actually kind of recognized about myself in this experience. I was like, oh, I do feel like I adapt pretty well. And I used to have, when I was a school counselor, I had this thing in my office someone gave to me that said, look for the good. It's all around you. And I feel like that is something that I really tried to embody is like in any situation, what is the good? Where can I find the good? So that was my experience. So coming back, it was nice. And as we were reconnecting with friends, we made great friends in Peru that I really hope will be lifelong friends at this point. And, our relationships here span 20 years. I mean, we have people in this community that we've known for a long time that have known various iterations of ourselves as we've grown up over the years. And so that also was nice to get to be around people that we had that history and that depth with. Obviously, our family is here, and so being closer to them. So there was coming back. When people back in Peru would say, how's it going? How is it being back in the US? My answer would usually be, it is going better than expected.
And those relationships is clearly what we're all about. And to have the relationships and leave them or just have them change as we departed Peru to come back here was a hard thing. And stepping back into the relationships that were full of depth and just plug right back in like we were never gone, there's a ton of value in that as well. And so our girls were like, hit a point where they were sad to leave and excited to go back and kind of just felt this. I could see this little internal struggle inside of them. And so that was one of the lessons that we got to work through with them is how to be so glad we came and so glad we built this life and so glad we created these deep friendships. And we're not leaving them. We're just evolving them. And they have love here too. And it was really cool for them to start to acknowledge that as hard as it was hard to leave the US, right? And then it was hard to leave Peru. And our youngest at some point was pissed. She's like, I was sad to leave the US and now I'm sad to leave Peru. I'm just like sad. Like, why are we doing this? This is almost like a torture mechanism. And just to be grateful for the experiences that we have and the relationships we get to hold for whatever time we get them is worth it. I was a summer camp kid. I love summer camp. And so those relationships, I'd go for a month and would walk away feeling closer to those people after a month, and some kids that I've known for like my entire life, or the kids that I was in school with and saw every day for a year, just because we were able to get deeper. And so learning for myself how to do that, how to go deep and not hold back because of the fear of loss, or eventually we know that we're going to part ways, but just to go all in on it. And that's where a lot of that deep, like, essence of like good life comes from, a great life.
Yeah, and I think being able to hold that tension that the girls experienced, and we all experienced, that missing people and places is actually a sign of a really great life. You know, the fact that they missed it here when we left and then missed Peru when we left is actually a sign of beauty, right? That we've been able to have these amazing experiences, and yeah, and being able to hold the joy and the beauty and the sadness all together.
That duality thing. I've got a really great friend, a brother of mine, chosen brother in this world, and he talks about duality often. I was like, shut up. Like, just shut your mouth. Like, life is great. What we focus on expands. There's so much to be grateful for. There's so much light. And on the other side of it, though, as I've learned and grown, the ability to manage the dark and manage the sadness is also what's required to manage the light and the joy. So that was one of my okay, I would say not a learning per se, but taking something I knew intellectually and starting to embody it and experience it in a new way.
Yeah. And so coming back, I think each family member was on their own journey around it. And so, for me, again, I felt like, wow, things are going better than I expected. I forgot all these things I actually missed about this place we've lived for 20 years.
Like Costco. I did break down crying at Costco. I went to Costco. I was like, what is this place? Oh my God.
This is not a mercado. Where are the fresh avocados for 25 cents? But we all had our own kind of experiences. It was interesting too, because the kids responded differently than I expected, which is a good lesson in not making assumptions. They say something about when you make assumptions. And so the kids, Brooklyn is more of our, she's a big feeler. She's more of a rule follower, more organized. I always say she loves hard and she grieves hard. And she had a tough time going to Peru and leaving her friends and life and her comfort zone and everything behind. She's a little more like me, I think, in some of those regards. And then coming back, I was thinking, because she got to where she was thriving in Peru and had great friends there and loved her school. And so I was expecting just transition to be hard for her, because it can be harder for her. And we got back and she just jumped right into middle school and started thriving. She made new friends, like you said earlier, got into the musical. She was loving orchestra.
She tried out for the volleyball team and didn't make it. She didn't get to play it all, really.
She didn't play the whole year we were in Peru.
So she didn't make the team, and we were a little like,
oh
gosh, are you okay? Like, and she's like, I'm fine. Like, I was so impressed by her ability to withstand life in a new way, with just letting things roll off of her back. And I mean, any kid like showing up in middle school, and honestly, like a new middle school, because she missed 6th grade, and thriving, I think is such a unique and just an honorable trait. And so that was a huge win, watching her grow into that.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that was we intentionally, we joked before, and I think I said this on an earlier episode, was that our kids had a really great life in Fort Collins, a pretty easy life, pretty privileged life. And so we would joke about trying to, like, how are we going to create adversity so they get some resiliency? And really a big part of this experience was doing that for them, taking them out of their comfort zone, taking them to a country where they didn't know all the customs, they didn't know the language, they didn't know people there, and throwing them into this environment where it was kind of sink or swim. They had to figure it out. And that created, and it was hard at first, but it created this resiliency in them. And I think as a result of that, it also created this self-confidence by getting through that experience and ending up thriving. they had then the self-confidence that I can do this. I can do hard things. I can make it through. And so when we got back, I feel like, especially for Brooklyn, that really translated where things did roll off of her back more easily. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Bummer. Didn't make the volleyball team, but it's okay. Right. I can handle that. And then she tried out for the musical and got that. And that was honestly probably more what she wanted to do anyway. She still loves volleyball. Anyway, so she really was thriving. C, who tends to be our go with the flow baby of the family, if you have one of those. And she just tends to go with the flow more, adjust to change pretty easily, pretty happy go lucky. She really struggled coming back. And, my best analysis, my psychoanalysis of it is that Peru and South America was like more her vibe. You didn't have to be places on time. Everything was pretty relaxed and go with the flow like she is. And I think school was, a lot of it was creative and they were doing art and things outdoors and she wasn't having to sit in a desk much of the day. And I think she just really, personality wise, thrived in that environment. And so to come back and feel like things are more, I don't know, rigid, for lack of a better word. There's more rules and we're supposed to be places on time and things feel a little stricter or something. She was sad. So there were tears that we had to hold her through.
Yeah. What was your struggle coming back?
That's a great question. I think so. One of my big things from Peru was just the complete unwinding of our nervous systems. And I really do think that it probably took the full year there to do that. I can have bits of that going on vacation, right? It's like, okay, we're going to go, on this vacation for a week. Usually if it's like a beach vacation, those feel relaxing to me. And he kind of rejuvenates you and you come back a little less stressed, right? But within a few days to a week, for me at least, I'm usually back up at the pace I was running at before the vacation. So it's these like mini resets, which I still think are valuable. But for us going to Peru, and for me, it was a complete nervous system unwind. Like I got past the point where it was no longer vacation, but it was just our way of being. And I did not keep a to-do list, which if you know me is bonkers.
She had 3 before we left.
I was like a slave to my to-do list before. I did not have a to-do list. I was able we had space. The kids didn't have a bunch of activities after school. The weekends were open unless we had visitors. But most of that second half, we didn't have many visitors. And so it was a lot more of that space for magic, right? That we called it. But also just the waking up and going, what do you want to do today? Right? We have a Saturday that's free. Kids, what do you want to do? Well, we could do this hike or we could do this. And having that space and that just laid back sense of, ease and spaciousness and calm and relaxation that really, I feel like after the year really settled into our bones, right? It wasn't just this vacation style.
We got to embody it.
Yeah.
You got to really embody it. I will commend you for.
I think I did great.
I think you did really great too.
And so what I was worried about coming back was that I would just get swept up into the hustle and the busy culture. And so very intentionally, and I think successfully, created a slow on-ramp back into U.S. culture. We did not put the kids in any after-school activities or sports those first few months we were back. And we directly told them that, like, we're going to take it slow getting back into the U.S., give ourselves time to reintegrate. And so we're not going to do activities those first few months. And I think that was really helpful in creating the space. We also took things off of our plate before we left for Peru that I did not put back on my plate. So I did not go back to my school counseling job, although I was a little sad about that. But it was my choice, right? To lead a more simple life rather than having 2 jobs, just having the one. We turned our properties over to a property manager. We did not take that back when we got back. Lauren went off to college, so we did not have all of his activities and wrestling tournaments on the weekends and things. So there was a lot of things that were just slower. And I think we also intentionally made decisions that kept life slower. So I would say my hardest thing coming back was noticing those moments when it would be easy to get swept back up. And the holidays come to mind as one in particular where everyone's just busy and there's so much going on and so much of it's fun, good stuff that I want to do, and trying to really make intentional decisions about how I was spending my time and to create more space, catching myself when I felt that like I'm getting swept back up into the overwhelm and then having to work to stay out of it and to make a different choice. And some of it's like FOMO. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of good stuff going on, and it's okay to miss something fun for the benefit of my nervous system.
Yeah, you've done a great job with that.
Thank you. It's been intentional.
Uh,
How about
it's on brand.
that's a brand. How about you? What was the hardest part for you coming back?
I'd say I noticed a period of grieving. I was like, what is it exactly? And one of my chosen brothers in my men's work, I was down at a retreat, men's retreat in Austin, and just noticing a lot of sadness. And this was about 3 months or so after we had gotten back. And I was just sitting with it. And ultimately, what felt true when I landed on it was as the end of an era. I was grieving the end of basically my kid's childhood. Soren being 20, he's out of the house, so he's gone. So seeing what had happened with him, he's my bonus kid. And so he was with us about 50% of the time from the time he was 11, before that, pretty full time. And so I just noticed what happened once he started to hit those teenage years with jobs, girlfriends, friends, social life, schoolwork, sports. And this trip to Peru was a huge hug on childhood from me, and not just quality time, but quantity and quality time with the girls. And then just coming back and realizing that, okay, like we're in a new season of parenting. And granted, Jossie's still 11 in fifth grade, so we get that a little bit. But also, after being gone, another challenge was we took a bit of a sabbatical, y'all, and we had tons of momentum and wait lists in our business and in our coaching before we left. And then when coming back from sabbatical, I had this like, okay, well, we just did something awesome. This is what we do. There's going to be a huge sort of influx. Like it's just going to get right back to where we were at pretty darn quick. And that wasn't the case. And so there I am, like missing having all this quantity and quality time with the kids. They're now starting to kind of do their own. I mean, they have school that they can't miss. And all of a sudden there's some weekend activities, but not a lot yet, but just noticing the amount of face to face and just good daddy-daughter time wasn't happening as much. And then also because I have been working diligently to get our business and my other business, so my businesses, up to the point where they deserve to be, where they've been before. And so now I'm working more, kind of working from like hardly at all. Like we were writing a book took some time, but like that was while they were at school. So not working much to working a ton, and then just feeling this grieving of the end of the era of my young kids phase, which I never really wished away. I enjoyed every moment of it. And so it was really sad to feel like that season has really ended. Here we are, February 10th, so it's kind of like that snake shedding, right? Entering the season of the fire horse kind of a vibe, but like with our kids, just like getting into a new space and feeling really sad about that.
Yeah, that's fair. So how we solved that was we got a puppy.
Cute.
James identified that he had a hole shaped like Peru in his heart, and that it was about the same size as a miniature dachshund, which happens to be, we saw a dachshund at one of the places we went in Peru, Usipata. Oh, there she is if you're watching on YouTube. So James said about a month after being back.
You were gone for the weekend.
Yeah,
you were taking Soren off to college, and the girls and I went to Tour de Fat, and I saw a dachshund, this lady carrying a dachshund, and I was like, I want one. And I was like, girls, what happened? What do you think mom would say if like she came home and we had a puppy, a little dachshund puppy, a little wiener dog? And they were like, we might want to wait till mom gets back. And she got back, and I was like, I want a dog. And she was like,
we had one within 48 hours. So we were like, the girls and I,
get it.
As more of the dog people in the family, then James were like, quick before he changes his mind, get the puppy.
Yeah, get the puppy.
So we got the puppy. I don't necessarily like say you need to get a puppy if you get back from traveling abroad, but it worked really well for us.
Yeah, a friend of ours was like, oh, that wasn't much of a rash decision. It's not like you were grieving. And Angel's like, Soren left for college and the girls are getting older. We just got back from Peru. She goes, you
are grieving. This is a grief puppy.
So that was a surprise. It's like how much grief really popped up for me. And it was multifaceted. And so there's just like a couple convergences of things that I was saying goodbye to, seasons that were ending. And so I was a little surprised and shocked when I realized that it was grief that I was feeling. That was weighing me down in terms of, in general, my disposition, right? So like really working on my mindset. Mindset first is a tool and an approach that I always take. And so like noticing that, I was like, oh, this is tough. And then on the flip side of that, it was making work harder. I'd be working, but I'd be like grieving. And so really working to be just aware of that and then using the tools. There's a ton of tools out there, and some friends of mine gifted me some, which really helped me get through that, acknowledge that, and then say goodbye to that. That was really what it was about. Is like, this is what I got out of it. This is what was beautiful, and this is the parts that like I'm going to say goodbye to and honor in a very intentional way. Oh, this was another fun little thing that happened when we got back. So I mentioned on a previous episode, but we get back and the girls have shared a bedroom since forever, like basically forever, right? Since Jossie got out of her crib. And we were like, okay, when we get back, Brooklyn, you're a teenager. Like, you get your own room. Soren's out of the house. We're going to rearrange it. And so you're going to have your own rooms. And so we get back after just a hard week of trying to get back, like a full week of traveling back and managing all the stuff that it took. And we get to the house at like midnight, maybe 1 a.m. And Brooklyn just looks at Josh. She's like, good night, girl. And like goes into her room and shuts the door. She's like, I got my own room. And Jossie's like, what the just happened there? Like, hold on a second. Like, I can't even get like, she's just so sad and just like offended by this whole thing. But it's late. She goes to bed, and the girls had a really hard time for the next like 2 weeks. They were bickering more. Jossie was just hurt and pissed about it. Yeah, she's pretty pissed. And so I just got that same like mentality of like, okay, let's do a little ceremony here to help close this chapter instead of just closing the door. And so this was also while Angela's gone, dropping Soren off at college. But I sat the girls down in their old room together, and we just started telling stories, about them sharing a room, and they started telling fun stories about what they would talk about whenever they were younger, and just really leaning into some of those joyous memories. And then it was like, okay, well, what do you wish for your sister in her own room? And so I was able to navigate a little intentional ceremony about closing that chapter. And after that, do you remember did you notice?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really helped. Jossie started to love her own room. Like, we were able to celebrate, like, this is a growth thing instead of like a punishment or something like that. And so just remembering in all of the movement, and I'm dealing with all my own internal things inside. I've got all my own tension. Angela's got hers, and then our girls haven't. So there's just like, again, these transitions kick up extra tension, and just to remember to slow way down and honor the moment and just take a minute to celebrate, to say goodbye, and to release things has been a huge learning practice, getting back. And even still, we'll still do some of that whenever we notice some of these just old energies sticking around.
Yeah, and I would say we did that as well before leaving Peru. We had some times where, whether it was with friends, we had a little going away party at a local cafe.
It's a fiesta.
A fiesta. We had, times just as a family where we talked about all the things, our favorite memories and what we were grateful for our year in Peru. And I think those things, though, create these opportunities, rituals, ceremonies for closure, right? And acknowledge the importance of something, and also in a way that kind of ties a bow on it. And so I think that's, to your point, I think that's something just in general to remember in transitions that we tried to incorporate into this transition back.
Because, yeah, it's funny. We do work with couples that are in some type of transitional, in a business, out of a business, something changing in their marriage, empty nesters, right? We find that transition can spark the desire to get a little bit of guidance, a little tools. And so, yeah, that's something we had done in our work for a long time, is creating opportunities for closure and just to remember in our own lives. Because again, it's hard to read the bottle when you're inside the label. Flip that around. That's hard to read the label inside the bottle. And so just it's always fun because we do this work and we're experts at it. We're great at it. We can see it in other people so well. And sometimes it is hard to see it in our own lives. And so to get that outside perspective, or just every now and again to get that awareness, like, well, this is what we're experiencing. This is a tool that we would use in our own coaching or to help our own clients out. And then to be able to pull out that toolbox, and just use the right one in the right moment. They're great.
I would say also, back to the learnings for the kids, I think one of the really valuable experiences, which was something I was wanting to create for them, is their sense of kind of worldliness is the best word that comes to mind. But their understanding now, having lived in a different culture, learning to speak Spanish, which they're both very proud of the fact that they speak Spanish, and we really try to encourage it whenever we can. And just like the access that gave them to a large portion of the world's population. We talked about that when we were coming home, is that so much, I don't know the statistic off of my head, but so many people in the world speak Spanish. And now the girls have the opportunity to have authentic relationships with those people because they can speak their language. And even just seeing what that did for their relationship with Carla, my best friend, their Titi, their Tia, who has always been very close to them, but how special, like it's brought her to tears having her girls, which she calls her babies, speak to her in her native tongue, right? And what that has meant to her, who speaks English very well. But it's just it's a new level that they've reached. And also just their understanding and empathy for people around the world who live differently. I feel like they are so much more grateful. Not that they weren't grateful children before, but they have a new level of gratefulness.
They didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah. And so they know how privileged they are now to have all the things they have in their life, like clean water out of their tap, right? I might have said this story before, but when we got back, we went out to a restaurant with some friends and we're in the bathroom and Jossie's like, Mom, this bathroom has toilet paper and soap. Like she was so impressed.
And running water.
Yeah, because not all the bathrooms we visited, especially on a road trip, did. And just that she was not taking that for granted anymore, right? And I feel like the number of times our girls have just looked at us and genuinely said thank you for something is gone up exponentially since this experience. And then also just with the state of the world and trying to raise kids to be good humans in our world, the level of empathy that they understand what it is like to be an immigrant in another country, even though we had a lot of privileges because even though we were in the minority, our white skin still carried some privileges. We had money to afford the things we needed and wanted. So it wasn't as hard for us as it is sometimes for other immigrants. And they still got to experience the uncomfortability of sometimes, at the beginning, being the only person with their skin color in a space, to be the only person that was speaking English, right? And everyone else around them speaking Spanish at a time when they didn't fully understand Spanish yet. And getting them outside of their comfort zone, I think just gave them a greater empathy and understanding for what a lot of other people experience in the world.
Yeah, we do a lot for our kids and want the best for them. And this was something that we identified would help them to grow and be at their best. I think that worked. What do you think changed in our marriage?
I feel like this is a surprise question. I didn't know I was going to get. I would say a couple things. I think, when we talked about earlier, the first 3-ish months that we were there being really hard on our marriage because we were both out of our comfort zones. I was still having a lot of, feelings and anxiety around Soren's accident from before we left. And your frustration was really kicked up. I think what happened was, taking both of us out of our comfort zones and without our normal support systems that we had here back in the US. Like we mentioned, we had different friends and different gyms and all these ways we got support outside of each other when we were in the US. Those being stripped away really just shone a spotlight on some of the cracks that were there.
Very bright spotlight.
Yeah. And that was really hard at the time. Ultimately, it allowed us to work on those, to repair those to a point where I feel, with your frustration that you mentioned before in a previous episode and how that would come out, and to see you hardly ever get frustrated now, or when you do, it's very low level and it doesn't feel like it's turned on me or the kids, has been huge, I think, for our relationship and our ability to stay connected. Because I felt like those moments would create this disconnect and then we'd have to work to get back connected. And so I think our connection is much more resilient now, and not like I've had things to work on myself as well, getting defensive, not taking things personally. And so I think our willingness to both do that work has just created a more resilient connection where I don't feel like our connection takes much effort at this point. Some intentionality, but not effort.
Yeah, we were spending a lot of energy going it was easy to get disconnected and to get out of that love, right? And it was a lot of energy to get back into it. And then once we would get back into it, if it didn't last long, which, one little snap would take us right back out of it in a disconnection and more repair is needed, it was exhausting. And so that pattern being shifted, I think, is a really huge thing for us. It's leaving us a lot more energy for other things and also just growing the heights of where we can get to. Right. So, because when we're in this space of love longer with more ease, then we can go deeper into that as opposed to just constantly repairing it. I think one of the interesting things that has come up in that still is talk a lot about nervous system and nervous system reset in so many ways. These new patterns between us have required a reset in the nervous system as well, just like a new sense of peace, right? There's, certain things might come up and it's like the nervous system goes right back to that fight, flight, or freeze. Like, oh, in the old pattern, this would drive us out of connection. And like you say, it takes two to create a pattern, one to change it. And when it's my part of the pattern, that might knock us out. Like if I'm generally kind of miffy about something, you're like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to turn into one of those things that would generally drive us out of connection? Because it might get pointed at me and I might get a sharp edge. I'll notice you still kind of get a little bit like braced for that, which also in the past would have been the thing that made me put the sharp edge. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not angry at you, right? It was like, that was a fun time. And so I think one of the unique learnings that we're still in the middle of is I'll see that like sort of brace, or I think you do it for me on other things that typically come up. And I'll just get to look at you and be like, hon, like that's not what time it is, and be able to give you a big hug and say, hey, I can just see your nervous system is still getting used to and settled into this being our pattern and this being our way of being.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think I got really used to reading into the slightest change of tone in your voice and bracing. Is it this gonna be, oh, he sounds a little frustrated. Is he gonna, lash out at me? And now one thing, that has been my work to do and I think is, getting better is one, being able to trust that no, you are managing your frustration very differently now. And that also not taking it personally, right? If you sound a little frustrated, that might be true and that's okay. And if I'm not worried about it being directed towards me, I can also not take it personally and not go, well, okay, yeah, he's frustrated, but that doesn't really need to affect me, right? Or isn't about me.
Which I really appreciate, because when she would make it about her, it would make it worse. I'm like, can't I just feel this feeling over here without you making it worse?
So I think, and we say that a lot, that it takes two to create a pattern, one to break it. And what we also emphasize with couples we're working with, which is something we're living right now, is we want to give both people the skills and tools to break the pattern so that in any given moment, you're just really hoping one of them can pull it off, right? And so you learning to manage your frustration in a different way and not feeling it as intensely. And for me, learning to not take things personally or get defensive when it happens. And if both of us are doing that, awesome. But really in the moment, as long as one of us is doing our part, we can really diffuse the situation and it doesn't break connection.
Huge. That was worth the price of the year, whatever that was.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that is going to help us stay a lot more happy in our marriage for this life that we get to share it.
Agreed.
Is there anything else on your heart before we wind her down?
Yeah, I would say if you have the ability and desire to live abroad at some point, I highly recommend it. And, and we've shared a lot of the struggle because I think the struggles are real. And I hope you also heard in this all the beauty and how there was so much beauty just for beauty itself. And then even the struggles, like, were part of the beauty, right? It's what helped us expand and learn and grow, all of us, our whole family, in a way that I do feel like we left that experience different and better people than we were before.
Because we're all going to struggle. It's just, to be human is to struggle. And when on the scale of 1 to 10 of life, if 10 is like the perfect life and 1 is like extreme pain, there's this like seductive 7. Like, oh, I'm a 7 out of 10. Our relationship's a 7 out. My job is a 7 out of 10. The way my kids is a 7 out of 10. And that is just a slow suffering and I'm just comfortable, so I'm not going to do much about it. And eventually that slides down. There's no plateau. You don't just stand there ever. And so something in your life is going to change, a transition. You're going to get knocked down from that 7. And so you're going to end up in that suffering anyways. But then all we're generally trying to do, what I see so often, is people trying to get back that 7, maybe an 8 if I do it pretty well. And choosing the hard now creates the easy life later. And so to be able for us and for you to step into something that's challenging so you can break past that glass ceiling that you've set for yourself as a 7 or an 8, so you can truly live at a 9 or a 10 in all areas of your life, which is absolutely possible. Like, that's worth it. And in the meantime, if you choose to do it a year abroad, you get amazing experiences, awesome adventures, a phone full of thousands of really great pictures and memories that are going to last a lifetime instead of just doing another year at home.
Yeah. And I would say, to what you were just saying, that also goes not just for living abroad, right? But what is the thing that would throw you out of your comfort zone? You want to do it, but it feels scary, right? Is it leaving your job to really pursue a career you love or an entrepreneurial endeavor? Is it moving towns? Is it having a kid, not having a kid, right? Like, what is
Is it
the,
rocking the boat of your marriage to actually do some counseling or some coaching in whatever area that you're wanting to focus on so you can make it better instead of living in that seductive 7? That's a huge one we see a lot. It's
yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat right now.
Yeah. So I'd be curious where, just from self-reflection for you out there, where is there some desire or something you're wanting to do, but your
You're afraid of
your focus on comfort and not rocking the boat is holding you back.
too scared to go down to a 5 or a 4 or worse for a
Because
little
that
bit.
is where I would say the juice is. What's that thing you want to do that feels a little scary? That's probably where you're going to get the most out of life. So,
Yeah, there's this lovely quote. C.S. Lewis says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek."
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun. So may you go seek some treasure, find the courage to do that. Find, a little bit of the tools, maybe tips and some encouragement from these shows. Thanks for listening to our 4-part series on Peru.
Yeah. And if you have that thing, right, whether it's your relationship, moving abroad, an entrepreneurial endeavor, and you're just needing some support, you need to borrow some of our confidence in you, then reach out to us. We'd love to help you, just encourage you, give you that little nudge you might need and that little circle of support to take the leap.
Could also be a giant kick in the ass, too. Little nudges work occasionally.
I do nudges. He kicks people in the ass.
That's why there are 2 of us. We bring both sides of the coin.
I hug you into your new endeavor.
Well, both people in the partnership are a little different, as you notice. Well, guys, we love you. Thanks for letting us share this episode, this series, this story, these lessons. Thanks for listening. Really love you and appreciate you. If this is your first time to the show, go back and listen to parts 1 through 3. And if you haven't left us a review yet, it would mean the world to us to see that review pop up so we can continue to grow this message of love. And until next time, y'all, may your life be married and magnetic AF.